All right, let's talk about something really interesting. What's on the dinner table in South Korea? It's this huge puzzle, right? Especially now with supply chains being so unpredictable. We're going to dive deep into this, basically become data detectives, using a brand new report that's going to help us crack the case.
Okay, so just look at this. It's kind of crazy. For rice, Korea is nearly 90% self-sufficient. They grow almost all of it themselves. But then you look at wheat, for bread, for noodles, and it's a completely different story. Just 1%. 1%. So how in the world can you have two staples on the same dinner table with a gap that massive? That's the core of the mystery we're unpacking today.
So yeah, what is going on here? You might think, oh, it's just what people prefer to eat, but it's way, way more complicated than that. Luckily, we've got this new report that's done the heavy lifting. It's our guide, our data detective. It crunched over a decade of information, and we're going to follow the trail of clues to see where the evidence leads. Okay, let's get into it. Our investigation starts now. The report lays out 3 big clues for us. And honestly, each one totally shatters a common belief about food security. Let's start with clue number 1.
First up, the production paradox. I love that name. You probably think you know the obvious solution for growing more food, right? Well, get ready because the data is about to tell us something completely different. It's a real twist.
So, what's the common wisdom? It's super simple, right? Hey, if you want to grow more food, you just need more land. Makes perfect sense. But the data says, nope, not so fast. It completely flips that idea on its head. The real story isn't about how much land you have, it's about how much you can get out of that land. And here's the proof. This is where it gets wild. Look at that bar on the left for farmland area. Its impact is negative. Let that sink in. Adding more farmland was actually statistically linked to lower self-sufficiency. How's that possible? Well, maybe the new land wasn't as good, or it spread resources too thin. But now look at the other bar, production volume, or yield. That's a huge positive. The message here couldn't be clearer. The game isn't about grabbing more land, it's about making the land you already have work smarter and harder. And if you want the most extreme example, look no further than rice. The report calls it the farmland paradox. As the amount of land dedicated to rice went up, the self-sufficiency rate actually tended to go down. And no, that's not a mistake. It really shows there was this focus on just getting bigger, not better. So the real answer isn't about sheer size. It's about being smart, using tech, using innovation, to squeeze every last bit of potential out of every plot of land. Okay, so that's clue 1. Let's move on to our second clue, the import flood. We're shifting gears now from the farm fields to the massive cargo ships pulling into port. This is all about the huge role of international trade. Okay, look at this number, -1.31. If there's one number to burn into your brain from this whole thing, it's this one. This is the statistical power of import times volume. And it is without a doubt the single heaviest anchor dragging down Korea's food self-sufficiency. So what does that number even mean? Well, that's what's called a regression coefficient. You could just think of it as an influence score. And -1.31, that's a massive score. It's a huge red flag. It's telling us that for every little increase in the volume of imports coming in, self-sufficiency doesn't just go down a bit, it takes a nosedive. The point isn't that imports are bad, it's that the sheer, overwhelming quantity of them is what's really changing the game. And what's cool is the data doesn't just tell us what the problem is, it shows us how it's happening. It literally maps out these import superhighways. And who are the main drivers on these highways? You've got your wholesalers and vendors in the middle. You've got big companies just importing stuff directly for themselves. And then you have the specialized import trading companies. This is the machinery, the plumbing that makes that import flood possible. All right, that brings us to our third and final clue, the consumer's choice. We've talked about production, we've talked about trade, but what about the people actually buying the stuff? Let's dig into why so many businesses and consumers end up choosing imported goods. And you don't have to guess. This quote from the report pretty much says it all. It comes straight from the businesses on the ground. It all boils down to one simple, powerful truth. Domestic products are just too expensive to compete. It's a fundamental economic problem. This chart really spells it out for us. You can see price is the big kahuna, taking up a huge slice of the pie. But look what's right behind it, convenience and supply stability. This is so important. It tells us this isn't about people just thinking, oh, I'd prefer foreign stuff.
It's about practical, nuts and bolts business decisions.
And let's drill down on that supply stability point, because it's massive. Businesses basically told the researchers, look, one of our biggest nightmares is trying to get our hands on a large, steady supply of domestic ingredients. I mean, you can't run a food processing plant if you don't know if your delivery is going to show up next week. It's a huge bottleneck, right in the heart of the domestic supply chain.
Okay, so let's recap. We have our 3 big clues: the production paradox, that massive import flood, and the realities of consumer choice. We've got all the pieces on the board. Now it's time to put them together and finally solve this thing.
So let's lay it all out, side by side. The common assumptions versus what the data actually told us. We went in thinking the problem was not enough land. The data's truth? Inefficient land use, or low yield. We thought imports were just a normal part of the market. The truth? It's the overwhelming volume of those imports that's the real issue. And we thought it was just what people preferred to buy. The truth? It's all about price and major supply chain headaches. The data really rewrote the entire story for us.
You know, seeing the real problems clearly like this, that's half the battle right there. So with all this evidence in front of us, the big question is, what do we do about it? What's the path forward? And the great thing is, the data doesn't just leave us with a list of problems. It actually shines a light on the solutions.
So here it is, a smarter food security strategy, built directly on the evidence. Step 1, innovate for higher yield. Let's pour our energy into R&D and tech, not just trying to find more land. Step 2, manage the import flow. We have to get strategic about that overwhelming volume. And step 3, make domestic products more competitive. That means getting serious about fixing those core issues of price, processing, and making the supply chain reliable.
And when you take a step back from all the charts and numbers, it leaves us with one last, really big question. Because this was never just about statistics, was it? In an increasingly fragile world, food security is really a form of national security. And that forces us and every country to ask a very tough question. What is the true cost of a meal?